Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all, no, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. It comes from China. I want to be accurate. Yeah, please, John. Please. I have great love for all of the people from our country. But as you know, China tried to say at one point, maybe they stopped now, that it was caused by American soldiers. That can't happen. It's not going to happen. Not as long as I'm president. It comes from China.
Welcome back to the Buffed Up American Adversaries podcast, right here at Appeals Law Group, broadcasting live. Visit appealslawgroup.com for more information on appellate law. Get your coverage done right with these fellas. They'll take care of you. In the last segment, Chris, we were talking about slavery and where it exists today and the control of socialism. And we see a lot of this on the virus, the Wuhan Kung Flu China virus. Here you go, world. Biowarfare.
Yeah, biowarfare, the perfect storm for the Democrats and for the Chinese. And there's still a lot of debate as to how and why it came to be. We do know that once it did come to be, that China purposely let it loose on the world and did not let the knowledge that they had about it loose on the world, contrary to what the New York Times is printing. It's quite clear, even Dr. Fauci himself has complained that the Chinese kept us in the dark, Dr. Birx as well. So, if you want to talk, actual truth, we know that the Chinese let this loose, and what we have been saying is an act of war. And by the way, before we get into that, I'd just like to say that this morning, as I was driving over here, I was listening to Salem Media, which we were a part of.
Yes.
And Mike Gallagher had a program. His program was on, and you can listen to him here. He's on 9 a.m. Eastern here in Central Florida. And they were talking about what they are calling an effort called Flatten the Fear.
I listened to that too, and you can check that out, flattenthefear.com. Yeah.
Flattenthefear.com. And this is what we've been trying to do since March.
We have been trying to.
Right? And it's interesting because he had a doctor on there, Dr. Lynn Lee, and she was talking, saying everything we've been saying for months. First of all, this virus has now been let loose on the world, and it's here. And it's here to stay. At some point, it'll become weak, and it won't be the virus of the day anymore, and that'll either because of herd immunity and or because of vaccines. But it's here to stay. And she said that. And we have to learn how to live with it. Second of all, she said kids need to go back to school. And this is what the president's been saying. And now we have evidence from countries all around the world. And by the way, the United States is the only Western world country that doesn't have its kids back in school.
And there's no confirmed cases, 0 confirmed cases of student-to-teacher transmission.
Right, because kids, oddly enough, it doesn't seem like kids transmit this to adults. And although adults can transmit it to kids, the kids get over it very quickly and build the immunities for it, which is good, actually, because we now know also, since we talked last, studies have come out that show that T-cell immunity is really what you want. And here's the beauty of the human body, is it is constantly developing T-cell immunities. Okay? And some people who are immune to this disease or asymptomatic when they are exposed to it is because they have developed certain T cells already in their body because they have been exposed to other viruses. So,
like the common cold.
Exactly.
They even sell a cold medicine that can help.
Right. So the bottom line is, if you can be exposed to a virus that's going to be in nature, it's going to be out there in our world, and you can be exposed to it in a fashion where it's not going to harm you, you golly dang well want to do it. Well, so this is one, I'm not saying we want to put our kids in school and expose them all to COVID-19. I'm simply saying is these are unwarranted fears to keep our children out of school, okay? And then you have the bogus numbers. The numbers have been bogus all along. Since we talked last, we had a national story break here, right here in Central Florida. Local news station, Fox 35, broke a story where they found that on some of the reporting documents, you had some 300 testing sites that were reporting 100% or near 100% positivity test rates.
Yeah, they traced that back to 35 different labs that manage all these testing sites.
Right.
And instead of 9%, they were putting 100%.
Of the positive results.
And then the local counties were throwing that out there. Oh, my God, batten down the hatches.
Shutting down the economy, requiring us to wear masks, and doing all the other things, which we're still required to do, right? Even now they know the bogus numbers. And what they were doing is they were reporting the positive results, but not reporting all the negative results, right? And their excuse was, well, usually when we test for a disease, we don't bother reporting to the CDC the negative results. We only tell them when we're getting positive results. Well, this isn't a usual situation, obviously, and nobody else seemed to be doing that, although in Texas they had to adjust their numbers as well. And then you had the deaths things. We've talked about how even Birx admitted that they take a very liberal stance when it comes to what is or what is not a COVID-19 death.
That, my friend, is an understatement. We actually played the video for you guys on the podcast.
Well, since then, just recently, we have 2 incidents here in Central Florida which highlight what we're talking about. Let's give them in chronological order. I'll do the first one. A week or so ago, it was revealed, and once again, Fox 35 was asking the health local health inspector, examiner, or whatever he is, not the medical examiner, but more of a bureaucratic guy. Okay, I see that the guy was 20 years old that you have listed here of COVID-19. Did he have any comorbidities? Well, I see that he was actually killed in a motorcycle accident.
That's right.
I'd call that one hell of a comorbidity. Now, supposedly he tested positive post-mortem for the disease, but he was killed in a motorcycle accident. They are classifying that as COVID-19, and to this point, there's no indication that they have withdrawn that classification. And then just, what was it, yesterday?
Well, I looked at the report on that guy because they always say, go to our website, check out the report, and under comorbidities, it said unknown. All right? But then it came out. They got exposed for that one. How many more times? Yesterday, someone gets shot.
Now, this is July the 24th, so this will be the 23rd.
The 23rd, all right, if you're watching this later. Shot and killed in Florida, marked as a COVID death.
Yeah, that's right.
These are the ones that we found out about. But if you go back to the March shows that we were doing, and we played that clip for you of Dr. Birx, and then we played another clip from another doctor in Washington, but we said, man, we don't want car accidents to be listed as COVID. And we knew why they were doing it because of the funding. $50,000 versus a cancer diagnosis of $13,000. We're the only country, in a lot of countries, you have to be sick before you can even get tested.
That's right.
That's how they're doing it in Kansas.
Right. Unfortunately, because we have Nancy Pelosi, who controls the House of Representatives, and you have this emergency situation. She was able to finagle things in these huge relief bills, which, by the way, they're working on another one right now. She wants some $3 to $3.5 trillion for more of the same, and the Trump camp only wants $1 trillion. I mean, what a bizarre time, right? But a lot of this money goes to incentivize the very things that leads to the falsification, if you will, of records. Because the hospitals, they can't do normal business, but they got to do business. And the only customer they have is the government. And the government says, okay, I'll pay you this much if you do this, but I'm only going to pay you this much if you do that. So you're going to do this. So everything's COVID-19, so you can get the COVID-19 money to keep your institution open. You keep your nurses and your doctors employed. This is socialism, ladies and gentlemen. This is how it works. Socialism is based on false realities. And what we're living in is a false reality. The morbidity of this disease is that of the normal seasonal flu, just like we said the numbers would show. And by the way, they still haven't even really started the antibody tests. So we still don't know how many people already had this disease and got over it or were asymptomatic. And I'll guarantee you, and by the way, the CDC and others have estimated those numbers are 10% higher than the positive test cases. So right now we're at 4 million test cases. I said it'd be about 50 million people have been exposed to this disease. And the antibody test, if they ever get around to doing it, I'm sure is going to show exactly that, maybe even higher.
Yes. Well, and all those numbers combined are still at a 97% plus recovery rate across the board.
Which means we need to open the economy back up, we need to get the kids back in school, and we need to take our lives back and stop this socialism march.
Well, I got to tell you about the schools because I have 3 school-age kids. And here's what's funny, because I get a lot of information on this from the children and their parents, all right? I got an elementary school kid, I got a middle school kid, and a high school kid. He's going to be a senior this year. Think about it just from a kid's perspective. They're telling you, you have the choice to either go to school full-time,
Yep.
go part-time, or just do all at home.
Yep.
And Seminole County put out a stat that said we've had 7,000 families that say they want to go back to school full-time. 17,000 say they want to do the virtual. Do you think most of those kids are scared of the virus? They don't want to wake up at 6:30 in the morning and go to school. What would you do if somebody says you can do homeschool and you can do it whenever you want?
Here's a sad
Come on, man.
Here's a sad reality out of Los Angeles, one of the larger school districts in California, certainly, and I'm sure in the country. 40,000 high school students have not logged on one time for any online learning at all. 40,000, which means now you got 40,000 potential dropouts on top of your normal dropout rate. 40,000, not even bothered. Many of them may not be able to. So, schools are institutions that, in a healthy society, help hold the society together. It's a way that we bring one another together. It's a way that we cherish our history, that we cherish what we're all about. And right now our schools are being used, just as the president said at the Mount Rushmore speech, to tear us apart by teaching our kids not just to hate our country, but to hate their parents. That's what it's all about. And in a way, maybe it's bad, not so bad that schools are closed, but once again, they are an institution so integral to any society. And by the way, there are the same problems in other school districts around the world where kids haven't gone back to school. And once again, in the Western countries they have. But in places like in Africa and Asia, there are many places they haven't gone back. And those kids are being left behind. And they're already behind.
Well, maybe we should change the name of the virus to the Common Core virus.
Yeah.
Because nobody can figure that out either.
Yeah.
All right. We can go back to school, and then we can start teaching them right. We can do 2 things. We'll be right back on the Buffed Up American Adversaries podcast. Stay with us.
Hello.
Since 2012, Cellulartronics has been providing Central Florida with the best phone repair and electronics repair. We fix all electronics from iPhone, Samsung, Sony, and many more. We also do TV repair and fix your tablets. Right now, you can get a glass back cover for the iPhone 8 to an iPhone X for only $95. iPhone 11 and up, back covers are only $120. We have 2 locations to serve you in Sanford and DeBary. Visit Cellulartronics.com or call 407-302-3396. That's Cellulartronics.com or 407-302-3396.
Welcome back to the Buffed Up American Adversaries podcast, right here with myself, Matt Buff, and Christopher Hart. We're rolling right along. We gave you guys a spanking on education. We've talked about slavery. Now we got to get into what the heck was going down in Texas at the Chinese consulate down there, burning documents. Just when you haven't had enough craziness. I'm looking at an MLB game with cardboard cutouts of people in the stands.
Can you believe that?
I'm looking at all this crazy stuff in the streets, and now I got the Chinese burning documents.
What a world we live in. You wouldn't have believed it if we'd have predicted this in January, right?
If I would have told you this, I'd be like, what bad B movies are you guys watching?
By the way, we did say that things would get worse before, because of the election, and that's really what this is all about, is the election.
Let me mark that down, because that's like the 9th time we've been right this podcast. But go ahead, Chris.
Anyway, I'm sure they weren't making s'mores or cooking hot dogs, right?
No, they weren't.
They were burning documents. Once again, we've talked about how China is. They're carrying on a low fever war against the United States and against the rest of the world because they want to be the dominant power in the world. And by the way, they're a socialist communist country. And they've been spying on us. We've talked about this on the show. We've talked about how they manipulated this disease. They've also been working with universities here in the United States, in particular, pretty much the whole university system in Texas, through this Houston consulate in order to garner information on biological studies of diseases and things like the Wuhan flu. From this perspective over here, getting all the knowledge that we have, which means they know what we can do to treat a disease. They know what we know about diseases, right?
Yes.
So they know where our soft spots are, where our Achilles heel is. And that's what they found with this Wuhan flu. Whether they created it or not, they early on realized this was like the perfect storm. Right? Young people get it, can pass it along, don't die from it. Old people die from it. You can create a lot of hysteria and fear from it. Right? So it's the perfect storm. And of course, their perfect enemy is Donald Trump. He's the only one pretty much in the world, maybe besides the Japanese and the Koreans, who have, not the North Koreans obviously, but who have stood up to China. And certainly in the Western world, there was nobody else. Bush and Clinton and even Obama made a lot of noise about doing it, but never did it. Actually acquiesced to China, sent our jobs, sent our wealth over to China. And now China's using all that back against us, and they have spies all over this country.
Well, that goes back to the NBA thing you were talking about with their Nike contracts and things like that.
Yeah,
all that was planted during those times when all that was going on.
And by the way, those slaves that you mentioned on the videos out of China, those were the Uyghurs. These are Muslims who live in the far western region of China there, and China's never accepted them. If they're not in labor camps, they're in basically
education.
Like that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, Nike is one of the Western corporation that benefits from their slave labor. So I won't have anything to do with Nike. And if I can, I don't buy Chinese at all. And so, but to get back to the spying, they're spying all over the place on us. And so the Trump administration, once again, is the only administration doing something about it. Closed the consulate in Houston. Yeah, they were burning documents. And by the way, 4 p.m. today, July 24th, 2020, is when they're supposed to be out. And presumably they will leave, although they made a little noise about maybe they won't, which would create a diplomatic, shall we say, standoff of sorts.
Well, China already retaliated, though, and closed for no reason. Just
well,
like a little kid taking his ball home.
Well, it was the Chengdu consulate, one of 8 that we have in China.
Yeah.
And it was staffed mainly by Chinese nationals, but supposedly watched the region of the country, I think, once again, out west, where there were arms testing and things of that nature. But it was not as big as closing a Houston consulate here. And then you have Tang Wan. And no, that's not a new, powdered drink. Tang Wan is a Chinese spy who came here on a student visa, right? And if I'm not mistaken, she was in California, University of Cal Davis. And when you come here as a student, you're asked on the questionnaire, especially from China, are you a member of the military? She answered no. It turns out she was. Not just, a regular, marching stiff in the Chinese army.
Like CIA, their version of the CIA kind of
yes,
stuff.
she was in the Air Force,
Right.
Chinese Air Force, but she was also studied at the military hospital over there, and then came here and was caught stealing intellectual property. In other words, stealing information that we're developing and patenting in our biological labs here in the United States. And by the way, don't forget the Harvard professor I think we talked about, where he was arrested. He was the head of the biology department at Harvard, and he was working with China and recruiting spies here. And 2 of his students were arrested with what do they call it? Vials of biological material, as they were trying to leave the country on their way to Wuhan, China. Okay, so this is all going on. All this spying is going on, and all of this is a huge problem that we're going to have to deal with for many years with China. Okay, and then you have the spying that went on with Donald Trump. Okay, and that also has been a travesty that's been being revealed. We may not get anything out of Barr and Durham as far as any charges, but documents are being now released by the White House and showing over and over again the depth of the spying that went on Donald Trump and how early it started.
And how many people knew about it and lied about it.
And lied about it all along the way.
Yes.
And the justice is long yet to be achieved in any sort of way, because the left has been so effective. Once again, the emotion, making Trump the villain, getting back to what you were talking about when we first started. All of this stuff piling on Trump, laying the groundwork. Okay, this is what they've been doing, and they're going to continue after the election, no matter what happens. Okay, they're going to continue to make Trump the villain. There may be a scenario where Biden will say, well, it's for the good of the nation, let's let him go, leave him alone, or so. But the problem he will have is that they have been so effective at making Trump a villain to so many people here in the United States, it'll be very difficult for them to let him off the hook.
Yes.
Which means the bad news for America if Biden gets elected, even from that respect. And, of course, if Trump, as we said, gets elected, the Democrats are going to try to use that to continue to foment violence against the government, against our history, against our way of life, because Trump is the personification of that. And, by the way, in that speech that he made at Mount Rushmore, great speech. And, by the way, there has not been a spike out of the people who attended that speech.
No, there hasn't.
And they were sitting shoulder to shoulder, like they were at a normal rally, very few masks in the crowd. And in that speech, he really laid out the choice in this election. And it is so starkly clear. As we said earlier, this is the election of all elections. And it is also the clearest choice we've had. It was pretty clear in 2016, although there was that element of, in many people's minds, doubt about, was Trump really going to be good to his word? And lo and behold, he has been, and more so. And that is an even bigger threat to the deep state and the swamp. They can't have a politician going around making promises that he actually intends to keep and then does keep. Can't be having that, right? So they want to retake their world. And Donald Trump is the only thing standing between us and the swamp and us and socialism. And he laid that out so effectively in that speech. But that's where we're at in this election. This is the clear choice. And that 80-year, crisis is not going to stop on election day, no matter the results. But it is going to determine where we go, the direction we set off in. Are we going to set off in the direction of socialism? Or are we going to set off in the direction of restoring our great nation and making it once again that shining city on the hill, which is meant to be the example for the rest of the world how to do it? We're not supposed to follow, we're supposed to lead. But then you had all this spying going on Trump and no accountability. So I want to just, my effort to draw out a little accountability here today,
it's
ladies and
almost
gentlemen.
putting on the hat time, but he's got a little something else for you.
Deal for you here. You can get these at license2lie.com, creepsonamission.com.
Oh, there you go.
Sidney Powell.
Oh, look at the guys that spy on there.
There you go. You got Hal. Let me see. Hal
Who do we got on
Mullah.
there? There's
Hal Mullah. There you got, let's see, there is Weissman, one of the prosecutors.
Andrew Weissman.
There's Strzok, right?
The lover.
Right, and here's his, let me get my hand out of the way here. There, right there.
Look like you're doing sign language.
There's Lisa
over there.
Page.
Oh, yeah, the other lover.
I got to turn this way. I'm not used to working with a camera. No, that's not Lisa
That
Page.
Lisa Page is down there in the
That's
corner.
right.
There
That's
she
it.
is.
That's Comey
That's
holding
James
up Hillary
Comey.
Clinton's
server.
No, her
Laptop. Yeah.
The New York police.
There it is. Now I can
from-
see it.
From what was his name? Carlos Danger.
Carlos
That's
Anthony
right.
Weiner's laptop.
That's right. There's McCabe trying to
Huma.
hide. Let me get my hand here. Right.
No, you're over there.
There you go. There's
Here,
McCabe.
I
trying
should
to
point.
hide.
Let me point.
There's McCabe.
There's McCabe.
And that one is.
Who's that idiot?
Oh, that's the one who was married to the.
That's the guy who started it with the Steele dossier.
Yes, yes.
His firm funded the Steele dossier. I know all about him. I just can't remember his name.
Creepsonamission.com is where you can get yours.
That's so cool.
And I'm liking my new Trump hat too.
Yeah, I like that. Very presidential.
You like that? Yeah.
Well, one thing we're going to talk about next week. I love it. He's all over
Like
the
giving
map on
baseball
that.
signs.
Yeah. Fauci, you can steal third. Fauci's horrible pitch, man. Good God.
right.
But next week we're going to talk about daily briefing Trump versus rally Trump.
Yep.
We can't have daily briefing Trump without rally Trump.
Yep.
So we'll talk about that next week.
And
on
will
the
the
podcast.
debates happen or not? They have actually announced dates.
We got to have the debates. If we can't, for the love of God, can't have the convention or the rallies, we at least give me the beatdown of Joe Biden on the stage.
All right.
All right, so go to AmericanAdversaries.com. All right, on there, you can click on the Facebook link. What up? Almost 20,000 fans on that page at this point.
Awesome.
Growing dramatically. Jump on there with us on there. Go to the YouTube channel to check out these podcasts and more. Watch a replay of Chris pointing at his shirt. There he goes again.
He's having an attack.
And also visit thebuffshow.com, all right, for show information and listen to past interviews. Buffshow.com, AmericanAdversaries.com, and of course, AppealsLawGroup.com. We thank our sponsors, and we thank you for listening. We'll see you next time, and you guys stay smart out there. That was funny.
I'll get a few laughs anyway.